Hi, I'm Carmen and welcome back. Sorry about the technical difficulties of that first recording. The volume wasn't working on my phone for some reason. But thanks for joining for our 5th episode of Cooking with Carmen. As part of our mission to heal hunger, Operation Food Search teaches families how to cook delicious food on a budget. So as a registered dietitian, I often get questions about dealing with picky eaters. So these are people who don't necessarily like to eat produce or particularly vegetables. So today I'm going to highlight some tips on how to make meals that are both nutritious and delicious by incorporating fruits and veggies in fun and interesting ways that both kids and adults will enjoy, because picky eaters aren't just limited to kids. So today's recipes include a veggie-packed sloppy joe and quick pickles. So first off, I want to highlight the My Plate. It's shown here on the screen. This is the government's guidelines for healthy eating. The My Plate is a nice visual reminder to find a healthy eating pattern that fits for you. So it's designed to look like a plate, and it's a simple way to visualize a healthy, well-balanced plate. So while not all meals look like this that are all portioned out evenly like this, but one thing I like to think about is the portion sizes of the different food groups on there. So for example, half of the items on your plate should be nutrient-dense fruits or veggies, and the other half of the plate is the grains and the protein. So a lot of times people build their plate around that protein portion, and that tends to be much larger than a fourth of the plate. So really today we're going to focus on the half of the plate that's the fruits and veggies. So most picky eaters struggle with getting in enough vegetables. So as I mentioned, as you can see, the recommendation is to fill half of your plate with fruits and vegetables. So how do you get your picky eater to eat more veggies? So first thing you can do is just experimenting with new flavors and textures. So if you're serving the same kind of vegetable over and over and your picky eater is not enjoying it, maybe include them into the grocery shopping or into the cooking process and have them pick out the fruit or vegetable to eat that day. Encourage trying new things or picking out new things at the grocery store or the farmer's market. We also, like in our kids' cooking classes, we try to pack in a lot of veggies into normally favorite recipes like macaroni and cheese. So when we make macaroni and cheese in our kids' cooking classes, we pack in tons of vegetables like broccoli and mushrooms and carrots. Really any vegetable that we have, we can add into the mac and cheese. And that comforting cheesiness and the noodles really make the vegetables more comforting or more approachable, I should say. If your kids are the picky eaters, like I said, include them in the cooking. So if they're younger kids, they can stir, dump in ingredients, mash ingredients like bananas or graham crackers. They can pick grapes off the vine. They can wash produce. Even just little steps like that can help them get comfortable in the kitchen, see the food being made, and might be more likely to try it. Older kids can measure ingredients, crack eggs, and even chop, peel, or grate vegetables. So in our kids' cooking classes, we use child safety knives. It's like a plastic knife that still cuts through like apples and carrots and other hard vegetables, but it's plastic, so it doesn't cut your skin. So it's a nice way for them to practice using a knife, feel confident, and not be dangerous. Next, you can make the vegetables the star of the meal. So instead of serving up those same steamed broccoli or peas, try cooking it different ways, like roasting it, sauteing it with some spices or some fresh garlic, or even cooking it up on the grill in the summertime. So trying different ways to cook it. So an example is my husband has never been a fan of eggplants, is what he said. So I took that as a challenge, like a personal challenge to get him to enjoy eggplant. And I tried sauteing it up with different veggies like peppers and onions, and then I stewed it in some tomatoes and some Italian seasoning, and he ended up loving it. And oftentimes whenever I make that is the star of the meal, and our protein is just a side dish. So that's how I kind of treat vegetables in some of our meals, is putting more effort into the vegetable portion and less into the meat portion, and making the vegetable portion really the entree. So if some of these tips that I highlighted don't immediately boost your child's fruit and vegetable intake, that's okay. Be patient. The more you introduce things in fun and interesting ways, more likely the picky eaters will try it. But today I'm going to be talking about what I like to call a stealth nutrition. So if your picky eater is really not ready to include a variety of fruits and vegetables in their diet, there are some ways to kind of sneak in some fruits and veggies. I will say this should not be the only technique you use to encourage fruit and vegetable consumption, because you do want them to realize that they enjoy eating fruits and vegetables. So if they can't see them or taste them because they're hidden in the food, how do they know they like it? So you still want to offer a variety of fruits and vegetables at all meals and snacks, but the stealth nutrition can be a good tip. So the first recipe that we're going to dive into is the veggie-packed sloppy joes. So first, I like to gather up my ingredients. So we have some olive oil, a half a pound of lean ground meat. So you can use beef, turkey, chicken, pork, any kind of ground meat works. I'm using beef today. Salt and black pepper, bell pepper, a yellow onion, garlic, a carrot, mushrooms, tomato sauce, tomato paste, barbecue sauce, Worcestershire sauce, hot sauce, and then whole wheat hamburger buns. So now we'll get cooking. So the first step is to brown your meat. So I've already done that to save some time here. So I have my meat cooked up in the skillet here. And I am going to drain it on some paper towels. So this kind of removes some of that fat. And like I said, you can use any kind of meat. So I use ground beef today, but you can use ground turkey or ground chicken for a leaner option. A lot of times people ask me about like the differences in the different fattinesses of like ground meat. So I try to choose like the leaner ground meat, so then there's less fat waste. Because if you think about it, when you're buying a pound of meat, and it's like the 80-20, 20% of that is fat that is potentially cooking off and you're draining and throwing it away. So when you're buying a leaner cut of meat, you're getting more of like the edible meat portion. So you're less likely to have that waste that you're throwing away. So it often ends up evening out. So the leaner cuts of ground meat tend to be a little more expensive, but again, you're getting more volume out of it. So we have our drained meat here, and then we're going to saute up our veggies. So I'm going to add in a little bit more oil. And I'm going to leave in those little toasty meat bits in there because they do have a lot of flavor. And I'm going to start sauteing our peppers and onions in here. And our heat is on like medium to medium high. Here we go. And while this is starting to saute up, I'm going to talk about the mushrooms. So we're using a full cup of mushrooms here, and this actually might even be a little more than a full cup of mushrooms. So what I like to use mushrooms when I'm cooking like ground meat is that they are almost like a meat extender. So a way to, one, to save money because you're using a produce option in combination with meat. So instead of a full pound of meat, we're using a half pound of meat and then a bunch of mushrooms. So the mushrooms are chopped up real small. So I slice them, and then I take the slices and I slice them again, and then I chop them up into little tiny pieces. So you can chop them even smaller. You can use a food processor to kind of finely crumble them. So the goal is that they will almost disappear into the meat, and you won't even know that they're in there. So again, you're saving money because you're using less meat, but then you're bulking up the nutrition. So you're adding tons of nutrients and fiber into your recipe. And again, this is stealth nutrition because once the mushrooms cook down, they kind of just blend in with the meat. You can also use lentils in this step. So lentils are a great source of protein, and they're packed with fiber and nutrients. And then when they're cooked and soft, and they look like ground meat as well. So I would recommend cooking them before adding them to your mixture because they do tend to cook a little longer. All right, so now we have our mushrooms and onions and pepper in here. I'm going to add in our garlic. And this is just minced up garlic. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can use powdered or granulated garlic in a jar. And then I like to season it with salt and pepper. So I try to season throughout the cooking process. So I lightly season the meat, and I'm going to lightly season these veggies as well. And no need to go overboard with the light seasoning. So now we're going to stir this up. So this, you want to just saute it until it becomes soft. So then we'll add the meat back to it after it's cooked. And the last veggie that we're adding is a whole carrot. So I'm going to use a box grater to grate in the carrot. And this is a great step to have like an older kid help because like the blades on this box cutter are a little but they can grate veggies, grate a whole block of cheese. It's a great way to get them involved in the kitchen and something simple without a ton of technique used. Grated veggies can be added to a ton of recipes. So sometimes I like to add grated veggies into meatballs or meatloaf. So when they're stirred into the meat mixture before cooking it, it kind of just disappears into that mixture. You can add it to casseroles, soups, even fried rice, dishes like that. When the veggies are grated, it's a lot harder for the picky eater to pick them out because they're a lot smaller pieces. And when they're grated like this, they cook up really soft and kind of disappear into the sauce if you have a sauce. Marinara sauce is another great way to hide veggies. So you could blend up cooked sweet potato or cooked butternut squash into your marinara sauce. I like it a little chunky, so I'll just chop up a bunch of peppers or onions or zucchini and put it into my marinara sauce. But if your picky eater doesn't want to see those chunks, blending them, like with a blender or food processor, can really hide in a ton of veggies. What's nice, like carrots and sweet potatoes add like a little natural sweetness to marinara sauce, and they kind of just disappear into the sauce. All right, so we're adding in our whole carrot, all grated up in here. I'll stir that in. So this looks like a ton and ton of veggies, but once it cooks down, especially the mushrooms, they'll cook down a lot smaller. All right, so I'm gonna put the lid on while we make our sauce to get the veggies steaming in there and cooking down a little farther. So our sauce, we're making our own sloppy Joe sauce. So we're gonna have a whole can of tomato sauce, and this is just plain old tomato sauce. There's no like herbs or seasonings in here because we're gonna add it ourselves. And then we have a 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce. Sorry, my brain stopped there for a second. And the barbecue sauce adds a little natural sweetness, adds a lot of flavor. The spices in the barbecue sauce add a lot of flavor. We're gonna have 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. So I like using these tubes of tomato paste. They tend to be a little more expensive than the jars, but oftentimes when I'm making recipes, I only need a couple tablespoons of the tomato paste, and the jar contains a lot more than 2 tablespoons. So then I end up throwing it away, and if I don't have a recipe plan to use the rest of it. So this tube, you can squeeze out what you need and throw the rest of the tube in the fridge. So that's pretty handy. And then we have a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. This adds a lot of flavor, a lot of umami flavors in there, a little saltiness. And then I like using some hot sauce. I like to say this is optional. Not everybody likes heat. And I normally don't measure this. I just dump some in. We like it a little spicy, so I'll add a little more than a teaspoon. And then you just stir this together. So if you don't have tomato paste, you can use ketchup. So the tomato paste is adding some of that concentrated tomato flavor. If you use some ketchup, you can also add flavor with that as well. So you just want to stir this together. We have our nice sauce here. And now that our veggies are lightly steamed in here, it's time to add back in our meat. We'll give this another stir. And I like using a pan like this that has like the nice thick sides. You can just use a regular skillet or even like a stock pot. Because if you don't want to use too shallow of a skillet, because we have like the sauce and it'll be simmering and bubbling. All right, so our veggies have softened. Now it's time to add in our meat that I drained on some paper towels, just to remove any of that extra fat. We'll stir that in together. And then we just add in our whole thing of sauce that we made. And this is another step that you can have kids help. They love dumping things in. The older kids can be around the stove here, helping to stir. And then they can see all the veggies in here, but once it's done and completed, the veggies kind of disappear in there. All right, so now we have this all stirred together. And then I'm gonna turn the heat down, and then it simmers for about 10 to 15 minutes. So again, that continues cooking down the veggies. Kind of gets all the flavors mixed nicely together. I'm gonna keep the lid on so it stays nice and steamy in there. And while that's cooking, we're gonna make some quick pickles. So pickling is like another way to encourage the consumption of vegetables. So I'm gathering my ingredients. So I have some cucumbers, onion, vinegar, water, sugar, salt, and the seasonings of your choice. So you can use anything from whole cloves of garlic to some sprigs of fresh dill, pickling spices like what I'm going to use today, red pepper flakes, sliced jalapenos. It's really customizable, and you can add the flavor that you love. So first, we're going to chop up our cucumbers. So I have like these little baby cucumbers, so that's what we have in our fridge. But if you have like the larger cucumbers, that works great. You want to leave the skin on, because like when you eat pickles from the store, the skin is still on. So I like mine a little thick. So I'm going to slice up my pickles into like thick slices. You can do thin slices if you like thinner pickles. Again, it's a very forgiving recipe. So we have our cucumbers there. We have a jar here. So this isn't any fancy jar. This is like an old, I don't even remember what was in here, like Marinara sauce maybe. Then I took the label off, so I soaked it in hot water and scraped the label off. And it's just a handy jar, so it was free. I didn't have to buy it to be a jar, but any mason jar works as well. So we're gonna layer in our cucumbers, and then we have some of the sliced onions here. I like the flavor of the onions that it adds. And I also like to use the pickled onions, like on sandwiches. Adds a nice crunch and a little bit of acidity. And I like to kind of layer it all evenly. And you can really pickle any vegetables, so like green beans and cauliflower, broccoli, radishes. Really, the options are endless. I've even seen some videos online of people pickling avocados. I haven't tried that yet. So if you've tried it, let me know. It looked interesting. So now we have our final layers. I'm going to pack them in here. I might have to eat the rest of these as a little snack. I love cucumbers. These will be for me. All right, so now we're going to make our pickling liquid. So in here I have 2 or 3/4 of a cup of water. So I don't like to use cold water because then we're going to be dissolving some salt and sugar in here. So it's just like room temperature water, maybe a little warmer. And then we have 2/3 of a cup of vinegar. So I'm going to add that in here. And then we have our 2 teaspoons of salt. We have a whole tablespoon of sugar. So I like my pickles to be a little sweet. And then you stir that to combine. So you just want the salt and the sugar to dissolve. So if you use ice cold water, it would take much longer. And it doesn't need to be perfectly dissolved, because once you put it in here, you'll shake it up and combine it in there. And then in the same step, I always like to just use the same jar or the same measuring cup, so I'm not dirtying up another bowl. I will add in my flavoring. So I have 2 cloves of garlic. And then I have some pickling spices from a local spice shop here that I'm going to add a whole tablespoon in. It has like some mustard seeds and some whole black pepper seeds and some dried herbs and spices. I don't know, it's a whole mixture. I think it adds nice flavor. But if I didn't have this, I would probably add a pinch of red pepper flakes to this and call it a day. So we'll just start to combine this, and then we'll dump it into our jar here. And I like to think of when you have vegetables as a condiment, that's kind of like what pickles are, is that you can also encourage vegetable consumption. So when you're making sandwiches, pile on tons of veggies into your sandwiches. Or when you're making a pizza, instead of just pepperoni or meat on there, include some veggies on there. Or like when I'm making tacos, I like topping with lettuce and tomato and avocados. Sometimes I'll saute up bell peppers and onions and make like almost like a fajita style taco. So really the options are endless. And if you use vegetables as a condiment, it's like another way to increase your variety. So now we're going to shake it up to kind of disperse the flavor. And then you simply put this in the fridge for up to 6 hours overnight, and it'll stay in there for like a week or 2. It never lasts that long in our house. It's usually gone within that first week. because it's just an easy snack that you can pull out and eat. I wouldn't keep it much longer than that because this is not canned, so it's not really preserved in any way other than adding some salt and some vinegar. But definitely keep it refrigerated and consume it within that 2-week frame. So isn't that pretty? All right, so now we have our quick pickles, and we'll check on our sloppy joes here. This looks delicious. So typically I would continue to simmer this for a few more minutes because it has not been 10 or 15 minutes. But in the effort of time, we're going to call this complete. So you can really see that, you can see the veggies in there, but really the mushrooms have kind of disappeared. So the mushrooms, especially if you chop them up even smaller, kind of look like ground beef when they're in there, which is like a nice way to kind of sneak in those veggies for those picky eaters. So I'm going to assemble my sandwich here. Got my whole wheat bun. And if you're curious how to find whole grains, a couple weeks ago I had a live episode where I talked about making pancakes and how to find whole grains. So you can check out that episode and learn about how to find whole grains in your diet. So we have our sloppy joe here. We'll pretend like our pickles are done. So open it up. Ooh, close it tight. Add a couple pickles. And we have a delicious veggie-packed sandwich here that is colorful, tons of nutrients in here, but it's also a recipe that kids can recognize and enjoy and feel comfort eating it, even though there are a ton of vegetables packed in here. So thank you so much for joining our show today. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to like our page if you haven't already, and comment below if you have any questions, if you made any of the recipes that we feature in the show. We love getting pictures and comments. And go to our website at operationfoodsearch.org to learn more about our work. And I look forward to seeing you next week for another episode. Have a great day. Thanks.